Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Command Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So, Outlaws of Thunder Junction has released, and with that, well, some amazing reprints. Yeah, the new cards are incredibly exciting, obviously, but also it is a time to look at what cards got reprinted, whether in the main set or in the pre-cons, and saying, hey, I've been waiting for that to get a lot more budget friendly. As a budget player myself, I am very conscious when it comes to price, and being able to say, oh, now you are finally within my range, yeah, I'm going to pick up, well, probably a couple of you so that you don't, just go too high in price before I can get you into all of my decks. So, yeah, on this episode, let's talk about those cards that you should be considering picking up right now. And, of course, there's a handy-dandy link in the description below for all the cards if you're interested in some as well. With all that said, let's jump into it. First up, my goodness, when this card was initially spoiled, I'm not going to say I never thought I'd see the day where this would be budget-friendly, but you knew it was going to be expensive right away, and this being just 50 cents right now is crazy. Heliod's Intervention, an instant for X white, choose one, destroy X target artifacts and or enchantments, or target player gains twice X life. Yeah, this is really, really good. This is a card that is flexible mass removal, essentially. Or, yeah, panic. Yeah, that player's about to take me out. Maybe I should gain like 10 life or so. Sure. Obviously, a life gain strategy enjoys this even more so, but being able to be flexible, again, at a base level, right? Okay, you got like your Crush Contrabands. Yeah, that's Exile. Okay, still. But you got your Crush Contrabands. At 4 mana, you are getting rid of 2 things. This is also 4 mana. Obviously, again, instant speed as well. Get rid of 2 things. But obviously, there's a higher threshold on this one, too, where it's like, okay, yeah, how much mana do I have before my turn starts? I've got 7 mana, so yeah, let's destroy 5 things for 7 mana. Again, artifacts, enchantments is always going to be able to be good targets for removal. A great spell like this one, again, is flexible, fantastic, an incredible card. Make sure you pick some up. Next up, Culling Ritual, a sorcery for 4 mana in Golgari, one that can be a very, very big play. Destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. Add black or green for each permanent destroyed this way. 66 cents right now. Here's the thing. This obviously includes tokens, and tokens are becoming a more popular thing these days. I mean, like, yeah, if the treasures are in play untapped, the player can just sacrifice them ahead of time, but at least still forces that sacrifice. That being said, if they're play tapped, or if it's a clue token, or any other kind of a token, like creature tokens as well, and just, yeah, non-land permanents that cost 2 or less, obviously, things that aren't tokens too, soul rings, mana rocks, whatever, essentially, just destroy all those things. Destroy all those tiny things. You can get rid of a lot of great things. And, of course, you can get a ton of mana in return. You're playing Commander, right? You got 3 opponents. They're going to have some things that are going to get destroyed by this. When you do that, again, you're getting, like, probably at least, if not more than any mana you put into this. It can be a giant ritual effect for you, essentially. Plus a removal spell. A really good deal for just 66 cents. Moving on. Cunning Rhetoric. I believe this one was actually printed in a pre-con previously and hasn't been reprinted since. 66 cents right now. An enchantment for 3 mana in black. Whenever an opponent attacks you and or one or more planeswalkers you control, exile the top card of that player's library. You may play a card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana or any color to cast it. Hey, opponents, you know what's, I mean, I wouldn't say better than a Ghostly Prison or Propaganda, but a different take on it, and also potentially better, yes, because this is attack deterrence, but not like punishing your opponent for doing it. Like Ghost Prison's like, hey, pay 2 extra. This is like, oh, okay, I guess it punishes them that you get their card, and it's like, that's my card. No, you took my card. Sorry, yeah, I took your card. But it is giving you basically card advantage off the top of your opponent's libraries, which is very, very, very spicy. So, yeah, this is great. I mean, it is max 1 each turn, but still, I mean, if each opponent attacks you, and maybe you've got some ways to encourage attacks, or again, you just want to, like, deter attacks, this can be a great either Ghostly Prison type effect, or again, a great, I mean, I'm not going to say like Rhystic Study, but like kind of Rhystic Study adjacent, where it's like, yeah, you get card advantage for your opponents doing things, and it's, I mean, on their terms, essentially. It's like, hey, if you want to do something, that's up to you to do it. If you do it, I'm getting an advantage out of it. So, yeah. It is a really spicy card. It can utilize a lot of different. It can help a lot of different strategies. Utilize it in a very effective way. Just 66 cents right now. Next up, Bajuka Bog. If you've played Commander for a decent amount of time, you probably know how powerful and how important it is to be able to remove opponents' graveyards. And if you haven't played Commander for a while, or you've got a play group that doesn't utilize the graveyard a lot, maybe you don't know that, but there's going to be a time where you end up getting blown out by someone's graveyard, and you're like, what? And you could just have included a Bajuka Bog in your deck to pretty much stop that. I mean, if you get the Bajuka Bog. It enters the battlefield tapped. Enters the battlefield, exiles target player's graveyard, tap for a black. Yeah, it's a slow land, sure, but the utility is crazy. Being able to get rid of someone's entire graveyard is huge. It is game ending against certain opponents. It's like you're playing against that one like Reanimation player, and they're like, ha ha ha, I've got 50 cards in my graveyard and so many creatures to choose from. And you're like, Bajuka Bog in play. I wonder who I choose. And they're like, oh God, not me. I'll give you whatever you want. And you're like, no. Buy graveyard. Okay. So yes, this is a card that can just decimate opponents. It doesn't really take up a spot in your deck at all. I mean, I'm pretty sure Bajuka Bog at one point was like $3 or $4 because it wasn't getting reprinted at the time. And again, there's so many decks that can just utilize it. If you're in like a 1 or 2 color deck, yeah, definitely consider this. If you're in a 1 color deck, it's pretty hard to argue against it. If you're just in mono black. But yeah, if you're in a 2 color deck, definitely consider this one as well. Yeah, 3 color decks as well can too. Just a certain amount of utility lands. Don't go crazy with utility lands in decks that really need a lot of lands. Not need a lot of different kinds of lands, I should say. Next up, Store and Kiln Artist. I still can't believe this one's budget friendly. It got reprinted again. It's even more budget friendly to 67 cents right now. It's a pretty broken card. Wizards. Don't know what you're doing with this one, but you did it. 2/2 Dwarf Shaman for 4 mana in red. +/+0 for each artifact you control. It doesn't need that. It really doesn't need that. It would see just as much play, essentially, if it didn't have that. It really doesn't need that. But it does also have, hey, Magecraft, whenever you cast or copy, and it's a short spell, create treasure token. This is absurd. This is essentially every single one of your instant sorceries now is a ritual. You get free mana essentially from it that you can utilize whenever you want. Again, essentially with those treasure tokens you're making, they come into play untapped. You can utilize those. But on top of making them into rituals, it also makes your copied spells into rituals too. So yeah, there's plenty of ways to go infinite with this, plenty of ways to do crazy things with this. If you got like a Storm Mist strategy type of deck or just a Spellslingers type deck, it's hard to argue against this card. Or just a treasure-based strategy. It's a crazy, crazy good card for just 67 cents. And I guess a power-based strategy can utilize it too. Because you're like, I need creatures that are low to the ground and have a lot of power. And this is like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, hey, just play me. Play me and then play some spells and all of a sudden I get powerful. You're welcome. Anyways, next up, Flooded Grove. I'm just going to utilize this as a placeholder for like all these kinds of cards. I'm not sure exactly. They call them like filter lands. Is that what they're called? Regardless. Tap for a colorless or pay one of its 2 colors, in this case Simic. Tap for any combination of 2 Simic colors. Green, 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 blue, blue, blue. Are these called filter lands? I can't remember. There's so many different kinds of lands out there. But basically, I think all these were reprinted. The entire cycle was reprinted. So yeah, they're all a lot cheaper. Some more cheaper than others. This one just 69 cents right now, which is fantastic. But hey, there's other ones. I think that like the highest threshold right now is like around $5 or $6 for one that like has never seen a reprint. But yes, these cards I think initially were in what, Lorwyn? I'm going to say Lorwyn, final answer. Let me know in the comments below if I'm wrong on that. That being said, a great deal for these right now, so make sure you check them out. Next up, Kodama's Reach. This is the card that, like, literally just keeps going, like, under $1, over $1, under $1, over $1. So he's got to hit it at the right time. Sorcery Arcane. Usually the Arcane part does not matter at all, but maybe it does. Maybe you're playing Arcane Tribal. Congratulations. Good for you. 3 mana Ingrained. Subscribe for 2 basic landing cards. Reveal those cards, put one on the battlefield tapped, other in your hand, then shuffle. Does that sound familiar? It does. Cultivate. Yes, one of the most played cards in Commander, Cultivate. Why is Kodama's Reach not as heavily played, even though it is the exact same thing, except for it's just like slightly different with being arcane, even though it doesn't matter at all? Because it's usually more expensive. In fact, it's always more expensive, essentially. At one point, it was like $3 or $4 because like it hadn't seen a reprint ever, and then finally Wizards was like, fine, fine, fine. We'll start reprinting those old cards like this. Yes. Okay. I was trying to think of the name of the other one. Like, what's that? 3 Visits. There we go. So I think of those. And I just stalled on it. And now I got it. So there we go. Not embarrassed at all. Let's keep going. Next up, Titania Protector of Argoth, a 5/3 elemental for 5 mana in green. When it enters the battlefield, return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Or every land you control is from your graveyard to the battlefield. Create a 5/3 green elemental creature token. Hey, if you want to build a commander deck around this one, it's a lot cheaper than it used to be. Congratulations. Also, if you've got any kind of a deck that utilizes, well, getting lands in the graveyards, like if you've got a good amount of fetch lands, if you've got a good amount of like hero type effects, like sacrificing lands, if you've got a good amount of deserts, I guess, these days too. Desert tribal's a thing now. Consider that. If you don't have lands in graveyards, don't consider it. But yeah, being able to get a lot of lands in your graveyard that making a lot of elementals is very, very powerful. Next up, speaking of that, in a similar fashion, Turn Timber Sower, a 3/3 elf druid for 3 mana in green. Whenever one or more land cards are put in your graveyard from anywhere, not just, from the battlefield, you're going to make a 0/1 green plant creature token. You also pay a green to sacrifice 3 creature, turn target land card from graveyard to your hand. Hey, yeah, this one, again, I kept saying from anywhere. That also counts, well, cycling, but also just mill. If you have mill, again, it says 1 or more, so yeah, Wizards sometimes stops the fun of us Johnny players out there when we're like, haha, I will just mill my deck. You'd get one. You get one plant. But no, if you have like strategies like, what's like a Ghoul Caller's Bell, like just like repeatable mill effects, utilize that. Mill yourself. Get cards in your graveyard. Hit lands. Get more things. Repeatable mill effects with this one can be great. So if you have a self-mill strategy with this, if you've got, again, any of those strategies I talked about earlier, deserts, lands and graveyard strategies, then there you go. Next up, hey, this card had not seen a reprint for forever. Finally saw some. Now just 70 cents. Never thought I'd see the day. Trailblazers Boots. Why are boots so powerful in Magic? There's like the most powerful things of all time. This flower over here and boots. Yes, this is what we need to destroy our opponent's armies. Boots. Put these on, dragon. Yes, put these on, spirit who has no feet. Just hold them. You can't hold them. Okay, I'll put them near you. Okay. Yeah, Magic's weird. Equipment for 2. Equip creature has non-basic land walk. Here's the thing. Okay, so it basically, I should say what that it means. It can't be blocked as long as the defending player controls a non-basic land. You're playing Commander. Okay? You got 3 opponents. Many players out there don't respect basic lands as much as they should. And even if they do, they probably have a non-basic land in play. And so your whatever attached to this is unblockable. It's very, very good. Very, very good. Making any of your creatures essentially unblockable is very, very good. Now, are there certain decks out there that won't have a non-basic in play? Like maybe my Joda deck, which is incredibly specific on how it wants to ramp. And the only like non-basic in there ones that are going to sacrifice to actually ramp further or like fetch lands. Then sure. But that's few and far between. Or if you're playing against like mono green and like, I just have all forests. Congratulations. Chances are incredibly likely, though, that this will just make any of your creatures unblockable. If you have a Voltron deck, an equipment deck, any kind of a deck that cares about getting a creature through, this is a very good card. Next up, Big Score. Another card that Wizards is like, hey, treasures. Instant for 4 mana, just cost cast spell, discard a card. Discard 2 cards, create 2 treasures. So you are kind of overpaying when it comes to the card draw, card advantage of this, because like typically you'd see this at 2 mana, right, essentially, but since you're making 2 treasures, you make up for that 2 mana, and then you can utilize that mana whenever you need to. So obviously, like in a treasure tribal deck, yes, it's very, very good. Any kind of like an artifact sacrifice deck, very, very good. Any kind of a discard deck, very, very good. Are you in mono red? Very, very good. Yeah, any kind of a deck that kind of like depends on, I guess, say like red as the card advantage, so like Boros probably more so. But yes, this is a very good card, being able to give you a mana boost for the next turn. And again, instant speed is huge. That flexibility is massive. I think Pirate's Pillage was like the first of these kind of cards, and that was at sorcery speed. Still sees play. Instant speed, much better. Being able to do this right before your turn. Be like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll discard a card, draw 2, get rid of that dead card, get some better cards potentially, and get a little bit of temporary ramp with those treasures. Yeah, treasures are pretty busted, Wizards. Stop with them, please. Thank you. Okay, next up, Return of the Wild Speaker, an instant for 5 mana. Yet another card that like actually started off budget somehow, and everyone was like, oh yeah, really, really good, really good. Okay, keep using it. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh, it's getting expensive. Oh no. At least budget players like me are like, gosh, it's $3? I'll never get to play it again. Because I play with cards that are $1 or less. Anyways, choose one. Draw cards equally greatest power among non-human creatures you control. Non-human creatures you control get +0 until end of turn. The non-human thing's just a bit weird, right? It's like an Ikoria where it was like, you know what? Mutating a human would be weird. Because we don't want, like, that to, you know, like, what's the thing? Like, it was on Rick and Morty, gosh, that one episode where everyone was, like, looked like, those creations were. Anyways, like, that would just look weird and be off-putting. But now this, elf, yeah, that can do it. Whatever, sure, whatever. That turning into a dinosaur is cool. Yeah, okay. It's specific. It doesn't matter. In 99.999% of decks out there, unless you're playing human tribal, it does not matter, okay? Or unless you just have all big humans in your deck and nothing else is big. This is a card that is absurd because green gets all the good things, right? Green gets everything. Green can do anything. Green has good removal. Green has great creatures, the best ramp, and obviously also great card draw. Well, it's dependent on a factor. It's pretty easy to be like, yeah, I've got a big creature in play. Cool, I draw a bunch of cards at instant speed. Yeah, green in many ways can draw better than even blue or black. And also, this is flexible. This is either, hey, like, draw probably 6+ cards most likely, or instant speed, pump my army, +3/+3. Like, better and worse than Overrun. Overrun is like giving the trample right, so it like gets through over it. But again, this is like your opponent like doesn't block. And then you're like, ha ha ha, +3/+3 to my army. Oh, wait, that tiny little human over there doesn't get pumped, but everyone else does. So it's a very, very good card. Just 74 cents. Cannot speak highly enough about this one. Yeah, green. Slow down a little bit. Anyways, next up, Omnath Locus of Rage. Angry Jelly Bean. 5/5 elemental for 7 mana. Ingral. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under control, create a 5/5 red and green elemental creature token. Whenever another elemental you control dies, 3 damage to any target. Yeah, if you have Elemental Tribal, or if you have this as the commander, or want a deck around this as the commander, a great deal for this one, just 75 cents right now, or any kind of a landfall deck. Any kind of a landfall deck at all. Or any kind of a deck that has like a good amount of fetch lands. Ramp, you're in green, right? You're ramping typically, right? If you have green. Unless you've got weird decks like I do, which are like, hey, let's get a bunch of enchantments on a land, then untap it. A bunch of times. You're going to have land ramp. So there you go. Next up, Nesting Dragon, Speed of Landfall. This card used to be so expensive. I'm remembering like $5+ or so. Again, from a budget player's perspective, very expensive. 5/4 dragon with flying for 5 mana landfall. Whenever a land is battlefield under control, create a 0/2 red dragon egg creature token with defender. And when this creature dies, you make a 2/2 that has fire breathing basically. So pay a red to pump it +1 with 0. Very, very good. Repeatable creature token production again, essentially on landfall. Very easy to use and abuse. And also, an aristocrat style deck can really utilize this one too, because again, you're basically getting 2 creatures for the price of 1. You play 1 land, you get a creature. You have a way to sacrifice, probably like say Goblin Bombardment or whatever. You sacrifice that egg, you pop someone in the face, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got another dragon. Do I want to wait to attack? Pop you in the face. No. Okay, anyways. Yeah, very, very good for those kind of strategies. Obviously, Dragon Tribal can utilize as well. Typically, Dragon Tribal does have green in it, so there you go. Yeah, get your green. Yeah, get your extra eggs. Yeah, get your landfall. Lovely. Moving on, Haughty Jinn. A star for Jinn for 3 mana in blue flying. Power equal number instant source cards in your graveyard. In source spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. If it just had that last piece of text, it would probably still see play. Being able to, it's kind of like, what's the, Goblin Electromancer. There we go. Got it. Okay. But less specific in its color identity because that has to be in, is it? Yeah, I mean, and also this is a creature that can obviously hit for a lot more than Goblin Electromancer, which I think is a 2/2 if I'm remembering correctly for 2. Costs 1 more mana, but still, hey, having a flyer, an evasive creature that can end up hitting for a lot. I mean, if you're in a spell slinger type strategy, say big spell strategy too can help obviously with like reducing the cost, but like a spell slinger type strategy, you reduce the cost further of your like little tiny spells to make them cost nearly nothing, and then also you can get a lot of power out of this too. Another potential one too would be like if you have like a mill strategy that's also like spell slingery too, because this can get huge in absolutely no time. Like just think about like milling yourself like half your deck, whatever that one card's called, and then milling yourself half your deck and then be like, now it's can for 20. Good luck, players. Also reduce the cost. Moving on, Nib Mizzet Perrin. They just kept like cranking up Nib Mizzet, like with all the Izzet ones, because now we also have like I think 2 or 3 5-color ones. Goodness gracious! But like when it came to the Izzet ones, they're like this version, slightly better of this, okay, even better version of this, but all like different and slightly more unique. 5/5 Dragon Wizard for an absurd combination of colors. 6 and 3 blue, 3 red. It can't be countered. Flying. Whenever you draw a card, 1 damage any target. Whenever a player, not just you, casts in source spell, you draw a card. Yeah, I mean, like, if you can actually get this out reliably, like, if you're in a 5-color strategy, you probably shouldn't count on this, because you're like, yeah, this costs an absurd combination of colors. That being said, if you're in, like, 2 or 3 colors, yes, consider this one, because the amount of card draw this can get you just from your opponent's casting things is absurd. It's also something that you can just, like, dish out just increments of damage. Like, just take out, like, little tiny creatures if you need to, or, again, if you're casting good amount of spells in a turn, if your opponents are, take out slightly bigger creatures, or just burninate your players' faces, opponents' faces. Or if you always want to build a deck around this one, congratulations, now very budget-friendly, just 79 cents. Moving on. Expressive Iteration, a source for just 2 mana in Izzet. The top 3 cards your library, put one of them in your hand, one of them on your library, in exile. One of them, you may play the exile card this turn. This is one of the very few cards that is like sorcery speed, but you probably still want to consider it when it comes to card advantage. I mean, I guess when you're in blue, like Harmonize, obviously, sure, if you're in just green or whatever, yeah, consider that. But like if you're just in blue, usually you've got enough, cards to consider that are instant speed that are better. But this one's just really, really good because this one gives you, okay, again, basically one in your hand. So that's card advantage right there. And then temporary card advantage with Impulse Draw, again, being able to exile one, play it this turn. So you have to play it this turn. That being said, it is play, which means that if it's a land, you can just play it. So you don't have to have extra mana available. But again, this only costs 2 mana, so you probably have extra mana to play another card if you need to. And then bottom the other one. So again, if you didn't need that one anyway, great. It's a really, really efficient card for just 2 mana. Again, sorcery speed is the only factor here. If you really care about casting's instant speed in your deck, do not consider this. But if you don't, yeah, very, very good. Moving on, Hour of Promise. Sorcerer 5 mana, search your life for it to 2 land cards on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Then if you control 3 more deserts, create 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. Obviously, if you have a desert tribal deck, do it. Okay? Pretty obvious that this would be good in desert tribal. Regardless, this is basically just like explosive vegetation adjacent. Because, yeah, it costs 1 more than explosive vegetation. That being said, explosive vegetation, we're already getting like more and more better effects than explosive vegetation at the exact same cost that just do more, like, was it migratory path, whatever that one is? It's like migration path. You can cycle it for 2 and does the exact same thing, but you're like, those are getting basics is what I'm trying to say. Those are getting basics. This is not limited to that. This might cost 1 more mana, but you are getting any lands you want. Which means, if you're playing a non-budget deck, yeah, you might have like a Gaia's Cradle, which is very much not budget, and probably worth more than all of my decks put together, definitely. Anyways, being able to go get, again, Gaia's Cradle, or whatever expensive, crazy lands you want to go get them, put them into play, do broken things, and yeah, that's kind of, yeah, what you're going to be doing. If you're just utilizing this to go get 2 basics, then you're doing it wrong. There are better effects to do that. That being said, again, deserts, or again, decks that revolve around certain lands or just really need certain, like, fixing with certain lands. Like, if you're like, oh, I absolutely need a command tower because I have so many specific costs in this, so, like, cool, go get it. Sure, consider that as well. Next up, Thieving Amalgam. I love this card. 6/7 Ape Snake, because that's a thing that costs 7 mana in black. Gaining of each opponent's upkeep, manifest top card of that player's library. Where a creature you control but don't own dies, its owner loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. Don't remember, manifest is basically take the top card of the library, put it face down, it's a 2/2 creature. Cool. You can also turn face up anytime for its mana cost if it's a creature. This is a card that just gives you an army in a box, essentially. Just throughout the game, you're going to get more and more creatures. Again, if you're playing with 3 opponents, you're in Commander. Obviously, this is a better card in Commander than it would be not in Commander. You're playing with 3 opponents, you can get 3 creatures for free on their turns. Thank you, or once each turn. You know what I mean. And also, if those creatures die, you drain each opponent 2, and you also gain 2. So you're also like draining 6 total while gaining 2 for each of those creatures. If all those creatures die, that's like 18 total life drained, 6 total life gained with 1 trip around the table. Yeah, very good. That being said, obviously, if you want to flip those creatures over, cool, you can do that too. And if you got like Cloud Shift, that could also help you too. So that's the thing as well. That being said, a blank spell that blinks it back to your control. Anyways. That being said, great creature token production, great draining effect as well. Yeah, good for Iskrat style strategies, and there's strategies that want to like fill the board. They time creatures have decent creature fodder out there as well. 91 cents, great. Mythic's Mastery, a blowout card at 99 cents right now. Sorcerer 4 mana, but you can also overload it for 8. Exile target card that's in sorcerer from your graveyard. For each card, exile this way, copy it, and you may cast copy without paying its mana cost. Exile it. Again, if you overload it, you change essentially target to each, so you get every single one. So basically, sure, 4 mana to cast in sorcerer graveyard can be a very good play. That being said, paying 8 mana to cast every single one of them is going to be a massive game-ending play most of the time. So if you have a Spellslinger type strategy, or a strategy where you get a lot of instant sorceries in your graveyard, or a Storm type strategy, utilize this. Moving on, Orin Frostfang. I can't believe this is 99 cents right now. I cannot believe this is a budget card right now. My goodness. This card, I think, was like $6-7, maybe even more. Finally saw, I think, 2 reprints recently. Finally knocking it down to my budget range somehow. A 2/6 Snow Creature Snake. Snow decks. Yay. You get another card. Just kidding. I mean, sure, if you got a Snow deck, consider it. But it's definitely better in a lot of decks. It costs 5 mana in green. Attacking creatures you control have Death Touch. On top of that, whenever a creature you control deals combat to a player, draw a card. Ooh, okay, so we've got Coastal Piracy plus, was it Boa Nylea? Does that give attacking creatures Death Touch? I can't remember. I think it does. Regardless, a really good effect, being like, hey, my creatures are deadlier when they attack, so it's going to be harder for you to block, if not impossible for you to block them, like if I have, say, like, first strike type effects where it's like, no, block my creature, will never get taken out. And also, it makes it so that when you hit your opponents, congratulations, you are getting a lot of card draw. So yeah, if you've got like a flying men type strategy, which is basically like just low to the ground evasive creatures type strategy, where you use Coastal Piracy effects in those decks, congratulations, it's an amazing card for those decks. If you've got any kind of a strategy that utilizes like a lot of first strike creatures, especially double strike creatures, my goodness, crazy good, because that works incredibly well with Death Touch. Trample actually works well with Death Touch too. A lot of mechanics, a lot of keywords work well with Death Touch. Yeah, card advantage plus deadly attacking. Sign me up for this. A crazy good card. Obviously, Snake Tribal as well, or Snow Tribal, those two, sure. Cursed Mirror at exactly $1, right there in my budget. Artifact for 3 mana in red, tap for a red, enters the battlefield, and may have become a copy of any creature on the battlefield until on turn except as haste. I do like Wizards. I do like that Wizards is starting to give us more and more inefficient mana rocks, but ones that have enough utility that you're like, yeah, I could be convinced with that. This is a card that, again, when you're paying 3 mana, you want your mana rock to tap for more than one, typically. Like, you want more than one efficiency, or at least, like, on average, more than one. You can, like, store up more than one. You want, like, a Worn Power Stone type efficiency at 3. You want, hey, I paid 3. It comes up like tap, sure, whatever, but it can tap for 2. This one costs 3, taps for 1. It's worse than Manolith in that way, because Manolith also isn't restricted to red. It costs 3 generic, and it can tap for 1 of any color. So that is strictly worse. That being said, this one does have some really good utility, being like, hey, I can make it a copy of any creature on the battlefield top turn with haste. I mean, this is just a perfect scenario, right? But let's say opponent has Blightsteel Colossus in play. You're like, okay, cool. My mana rock is a Blightsteel Colossus, because again, it's any creature on the battlefield, not just one that you have. So you're like, okay, cool. I take a player out with my mana rock. Yay. But yeah, if you've got any kind of a deck that has big creatures, if you got any kind of a deck that has amazing ETBs, attack triggers, make sure you're considering this, because, hey, it might take up one of your mana rock slots, or it might not. Maybe you can just utilize it again as, like, this is like a temporary clone effect, essentially, or like a heat shimmer, basically, but also a mana rock if it sticks around. See, a really, really, really good card for just $1. You know, it's a good card and, like, is basically never budget friendly and probably should be banned in Commander, for all being honest with ourselves. Soul Ring. Yeah, I said it. Okay, $1.04 artifact for 1 mana, tap for 2 colorless. Yeah, if the Commander format was to restart today and they were like, let's make the ban list, it'd be really hard for them to be like, this makes sense to not be banned when other things are banned. Anyways. Yeah, I don't think I need to say why this is so good. It's definitely a Power 9 Commander card. I think it's impossible to argue against that. It is absurdly efficient. Again, we talk about efficiency with mana rocks, ones that see a lot of play, that are 2 mana, they tap for 1. So they're like half as efficient as the amount of mana that you put into them. This is the exact opposite. This is literally cost 1, taps for 2. It costs half the amount of mana that you put into it to tap. It's insane. It is insane. I don't know mathematically, but it's like 200 times as efficient as like the other ones. I don't know. Anyways, it's a crazy good card. It's not in my budget. $1.04. So if it is at some point, maybe it'll start going in some of my decks. Regardless. Moving on to Swiftfoot Boots. We talked about boots earlier. Boots are good in Magic for some reason. Again, you just think you're like, okay, here are you, octopus with 8 legs. Put these boots on. Does it become like 8 boots? Because it's like magical boots, right? Does it become 8 boots, like 1 for each like little one? And how do they use the boots? Are they walking around in them? I don't know. Okay, equipment for 2. Equip 1. Equip creature has hexproof and haste. Wizards has started to lean away from hexproof because many players out there don't like not being able to interact with things. I'm not one of those players. I like hexproof. I maybe built a Boggles deck in Standard years ago. That being said, yeah, hexproof is super good. Being able to give it to your commander and say, all right, you're protected. I mean, except for like wrath, but like you're protected from target removal. Yay! Stick around. But also haste, of course, very good too. So like either of those scenarios where you're like, oh, I have a commander that has an activated ability that can tap, or run a bill swing with my commander right away, or it doesn't have to be your commander, it can be other creatures as well. But typically when you're including these equipment in your deck, it's like to protect your commander. It's typically what it's for. And to be able to just like keep this in play, like, oh, well, a wrath happened, you dealt with my commander. Okay, well, that happens. All right, next time I get my commander out, I'll attach it again for 1 mana. All right, okay, unless you know the wrath, your target rule doesn't work again. Yeah, very good for equipment decks. Very good for basically any deck that really wants to protect its commander. And especially ones that have, again, activated abilities like, say, Garth that can tap right away. So, there you go. Next up, Chromatic Lantern, an artifact for 3. Land you control have tap, add 1 of any color, and tap to add 1 mana of any color. $1.66. We just talked about, again, utility mana rocks. If you're gonna cost 3 and be inefficient and tap for 1, you better give me good utility. And goodness gracious, does it fit the bill? Being able to say, hey, yeah, I don't care about paying attention to what lands I'm tapping anymore. I mean, you probably still should, just in case someone deals with this, like, on an opponent's turn, but, like, you probably still should. But you don't really have to care about tapping your lands for, like, certain mana. You're just like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, whatever, I'll tap these 4 to pay for this. I'll tap these 4, pay for this. Tap these 4, pay for this. Whatever it's going to be, okay? You just perfectly fix your mana. It helps you cast every kind of spell you could want to cast. As long as you have the amount of mana to cast it, you can cast it. You don't have to worry about mana fixing when this is in play. So, yeah, it's inefficient, but very effective at that. Moving on, Windfall. Yeah, wheels are super good. Source for 3 mana in blue. Each player discards their hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way, $1.68. There's some mean things that you can do with wheels, like cards that shut your opponents out from drawing cards. Essentially, it's like, well, if you drew 1 card already this turn, that's the limit. But you got to draw 5. Don't care. Haha. Yeah, so there's things you can, like, Narset, essentially. But other than just being mean with wheels, wheels are very, very good. There are definitely cards out there where you benefit from drawing cards and saying, like, hey, okay, I drew cards. Okay, I'll cast this wheel, draw 7 more cards. I'll cast this wheel, draw 7 more cards. Also, this one's like a specific kind of wheel where it's not based on, like, the number of cards that you discarded or just going up to 7. This is no. Whereas the greatest number of cards, cool, draw up to that amount. So let's say, again, you discard your hand, which was just like 2 cards. Like, well, I only had 2. Opponent had 7. You're like, okay, cool, I'm at 7. Or if someone has, like, Reliquary Tower in play, like, oh, they got 20? Cool, I get to draw 20. Yay! It's a very good card. Wheels are very powerful. Next up, Electrostatic Field. I can't believe this one got so expensive, but I mean, it makes sense. Remember, this was very budget-friendly. 0-4 Wall with Defender for 2 mana. Wall decks are so popular. I mean, there's wall decks out there. Arcades, unfortunately, can't utilize this, but, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter too much. And there's some int sources in there. Regardless. Whenever you cast an source spell, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. That's what it's there for. This is basically like baby gutter snipe kind of, but like 1 mana cheaper and more protected, being a 0-4, you know, instead of I think gutter snipe's a 2-2. So it's just another way to just ping your opponents whenever you're casting in sorcery spells. If you got a spell slinger type strategy, definitely consider this. Vandal Blast. 1 card that I don't think has ever been budget friendly for me. It's getting there though. It was like a $5 or $6 card at one point, I think, maybe even more. It's an uncommon. It's always been uncommon. I guess it doesn't really matter in the Commander Precons when it's printed because it's like it's the same basically as the rares. $2.09. Source for a single red mana. Overload for 5 mana. Destroy target artifact you don't control. Or again, if you overload it, every single artifact you don't control. Very, very good card because yeah, it's flexible in that hey, if I really need to get rid of a single artifact, cool. 1 mana is amazing for that. But yeah, if I got 5 mana to do so, let's just destroy everyone's artifacts. Oh, sorry, players that, you know, have mana rocks out there that are depending on them for your ramp. They're gone! Sorry, player over there that was saving up all those treasures. Better utilize them now, and hopefully you got an instant. If not, they're gone! So yeah, it's a very, very good removal spell. Next up, we've got World Shaper. I always love the art on this one. 3-3 Merfolk Shaman for 4 mana in green. Whenever it attacks, you may mill 3 cards. Whenever it dies, draw land cards and grave it to the battlefield tapped. This is the conundrum for your opponents because this is a kind of card where you get in play, your opponent's like, okay, cool. What do I? Oh shoot, do I deal with that? Do I not deal with that? It's basically Splendid Reclamation. I think that's the card where you get all your lands back out of your graveyard on the battlefield for 4 mana, but it's like delayed in a way because essentially. Yeah, if you don't have a way to sacrifice it yourself, which you might, or just deal with it yourself, then you don't know when that's going to happen, but you're going to just keep sending this into combat and being like, okay, mill more. Okay, did I get some more lands? I got some more lands, yay! All right, you going to block? You going to block? Oh, you're not going to block. Okay, I hit you, thanks. Okay, next turn, all right, do it again, do it again, do it again. Or you keep it back as a blocker, and again, like a deterring blocker, if that opponent's like, okay, this landfall player has a bunch of landfall triggers in play, and this 3-3 blocker that if I attack them, and they block with it, they get their 10 lands out of their graveyard, and we're probably done. So yeah, if you've got like a self-mill strategy, obviously, if you've got a land-based strategy, landfall-based strategy, you'd have to consider something like this. Next up, Vainwitch Coven, a 3/3 Vampire Warlock with Menace for 3 mana. Whenever you gain life, you may pay black. If you do, return target creature card from your grave to your hand. I'm sure there's some combos with this, but hey, if you're in a life gain strategy, they have a lot of repeat life gain effects, like Dina, essentially, that kind of a strategy. Yeah, consider this very good to just pay 1 mana to bring creatures back. Like Genesis, like what is in your graveyard, pay 3 essentially, and only once on your upkeep. I think that's it. Two and a green. Rules lawyers out there. But yeah, this is very, very, very good to be able to like get back your best creatures. And especially if you have like a Riskrat style strategy, maybe some life gain effects in there as well, like Zulport Cutthroat, you could definitely consider that as well. Moving on, a spicy card. $2.79. Arcane Bombardment. Definitely lives up to the mythic name. Enchantment for 6 mana in red. Whenever you cast your first instant source spell each turn, exile instant source card at random from your graveyard, then copy each card, exile with it. You may cast any other copies without paying their mana cost. It's kind of like that one. Oh gosh, let me know in the comments below. Eye of the Storm, is that it? Oh, I think that's it. Yeah, it's in blue. It's like 6 in a blue. Somewhat similar, where like saves up like all these spells. But this one is very simple, where like, hey, on every single turn, not just your own, again, every single turn, cast, again, your opponent's turn's obviously an instant, or like a Sorcerer with Flash, I guess, if you had that. Sorcerer with Flash. You have to give your Sorcerer Flash. They wouldn't just have Flash, or they'd be instants. I guess they're like Route is one, though, that can give itself Flash. Anyways, this is, needless to say, cast spells, 1 on each turn, you are getting additional value each time. Because if you have instants and sorcerers in your graveyard, you are then getting them for free, just in this like giant pool, essentially, that you're getting every single time. Crazy good in spell slinger type strategies and also like storm type strategies. A crazy cool effect, and big spell strategies too. Scoot Swarm, a 1/1 insect for 3 mana. It's so cute. I love the flavor text on these. Survival rules 782. There are always more scoot bugs. Zerdy, Goblin Shortcutter. Don't take shortcuts. No, don't do that. That's how you run the scoots. Basically, whenever a land is battlefield under control, did I already say that? No, I don't think I did. And it's battlefield under control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scoot Swarm instead. This is for players who like math. Yeah, this is the kind of card that is just so powerful. You might not realize how powerful it is until you play with it or against it, and just how crazy this can get. Like early game, still not bad at all. Again, I'm thinking about that one that costs 5 that makes like little 1/1s as well on landfall. That still sees a good amount of play, right? Still sees a good amount of play, that creature. Zendikar's Royal does it as an enchantment too. But anyway, so they lower to the ground. This is basically that. Once you hit 6 lands, which is easy for you to do, you're in green. This is insane. This is absolutely insane because you're actually making copies of Scoot Swarm, which means that every single time you do that, you're getting more copies of Scoot Swarm, which gets more copies of Scoot Swarm. Again, it's for players who like math because the exponential curve on how many creatures you're getting is just crazy. You're like, okay, cool. How many Scoots do I have in play? 40? Okay. Okay, I guess I'll play an Evolving Wilds. Oh gosh. Okay, now we're at 80. Crack it. Oh gosh, no, we're at 180 or 180. Goodness gracious, what did I say? 40, 80, 160. There we go. Math. Yeah, have fun managing all those tokens in play. Yeah, it's a game-ending card. It's just 3 mana in landfall. $3.17. This is the cheapest I've seen in a long time. Next up, Boros Charm. Yet another card that literally is just so, I'm not going to say it's so much better than all the other charms, but it's really good in Commander. And it's one that's like, it's uncommon, but it's never going to be budget friendly for me. Instant for 2 mana in Boros. Choose 1. 4 damage target player Planeswalker. That's the worst of these, probably. Permanent you control gain indestructible of turn. That's the best of them. Target creature gains double strike until of turn. Being able to protect all of your permanents for just 2 mana. Insane. Basically, Heroic Intervention minus the hexproof, but plus flexibility. So, yeah, insane. To be able to protect everything, every single one of your permanents for 2 mana. Unheard of to be able to do that. So, yeah, just do that for 2 mana. Congratulations. Your opponent's like, oh, gosh, okay, I guess we just wrathed everything else, and now we're in trouble. Oh, no. And they talk like that. But, yeah, also being able to just give a creature double strike out of nowhere. Instant speed. Crazy good, especially for certain strategies out there. And yeah, if you need to ping a player in the face for 4 damage, yeah, I mean, this can definitely end games. If someone's at 4, you're like, Boros Charm you. Or their Planeswalker if you want to get rid of that too. Next up, Random Map Excavator, a 2/3 Naga Cleric for 3 mana. You play for your graveyard. If you have, oh gosh, not Conduit of Worlds. What is that one? Oh, Crucible Worlds. I think that's it. Got it. In your deck, you want this too. Basically, that's my public announcement right there. Public service announcement, PSA. Yeah, being able to get lands to your graveyard is very good. If you have just 1 fetch land, congratulations. Now you have infinite fetch land because you can just keep getting it back into your graveyard, fetching it again. Even just Evolving Wilds, it's really, really good with that. Next up, Archangel Tithes, a 3/5 Angel with Flying for 4 mana. This one is reprinted in the main set, I believe, actually. Whenever it's untapped, creatures can attack you or planeswalkers you control unless your controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. As long as it's attacking, creatures can't block or unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. Obviously, Angel Tribal can consider this very, very good. But yeah, it's just basically kind of like another like Windborn Muse type card, Ghostly Prison type card. I guess it's more like Baird, essentially, when it comes to actually the amount. Because yeah, even just a taxing effect for 1 can be massive for your opponents to have to pay that to attack you. Because if it's like a go-wide strategy, they're going to be like, okay, I've got like 20 tokens, but 5 mana, and I don't want to just utilize that to attack you with just 5 creatures. Oh no. And also makes blocking very difficult for them as well. Again, especially if you're swinging into an opponent who's got a lot of creatures they want to block with. It's a very, very annoying and good card. Next up. When Wizards printed this, it was like, okay, you're making card draw a bit too easy there, Wizards. Yeah, kind of like with Storm Kiln earlier, too. We talked about Magecraft. Magecraft is crazy good. 2 Human Wizard for 4 mana in blue. Whenever you cast or copy an instant sorcery spell, draw a card. That's one mechanic I don't know if I want it to come back. Because, like, it's just, it's good. It's good. I mean, like, any of those, like, I just make infinite copies of something, like, spell infinite. So, you mean, like, usually you can win with that, but some of you can't, like those Chain of Vapor, Chain of Smog type things. Like, yeah, like, you just get infinite copies of a spell, you just win. I mean, you don't just win with this, but anyways, Liliana, I think is the one with that. Professor Onyx, whatever it is. Okay, anyways. Yeah, whenever you cast, copy an instant source spell, draw a card. Even if this didn't include the copy, you would still see a lot of play with this. But it does include copies too. You'd see even more play with that. Being able to draw an an absurd amount of cards with this kind of a card is absurd. Spellslinger decks, love it. Any kind of deck that has good instant sorceries in it, a very good card. And of course, copy decks as well. Propaganda, we talked about earlier that, hey, protecting yourself is great with certain kinds of cards out there. This is, I think actually I got corrected. This is actually the OG, I believe. Let me know in the comments below, and I might get corrected again. I think this is the OG Ghostly Prison is actually Propaganda. I think Propaganda was the first, and they're like, wait, no, that belongs in white. What are we doing? Oh, gosh. It's like when blue first had, like, damage effects. They're like, Psionic Blast! Haha! Mind effects! And they're like, okay, wait, no, that's a red thing. Okay. Blue, let's take the card draw. Anyways, enchantment for 3 mana in blue. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control attacking you. Yeah, it basically goes to prison. I mean, maybe there's a slight, I can't remember if it goes to prison. It also includes planeswalkers. I don't care. It's basically the exact same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing. Just protecting yourself is much more important than protecting your planeswalkers unless you've got a planeswalker specific deck. It's very good. It's very annoying to play against this kind of a card because it's like, I want to attack you, but 2 is a lot of mana. Next up, Oracle Moldiah, a 2/2 Elf Shaman for 4 mana. This is another card that I will probably never see this one be budget friendly ever. You play this land on each of your turns. Play the top card of your library revealed, and may play lands to the top of your library. This is just crazy good. Now, playing extra lands, very, very good. Ramping in Commander is good. Who knew? You can also ramp off the top of your library now, too. And also just knowing what the top card of your library is. Yeah, you're giving up the top card of your library as public information, but, like, the benefit definitely outweighs the risk of that. $5.17, very good card. I'm also sad that this one's never been budget-friendly, too, because, like, sharks are my favorite animals. I'm definitely afraid of sharks. I do not want to go in the ocean. Is that an irrational fear? Absolutely. But sharks are apex predators. Anyways, they're really cool. Shark Typhoon, enchantment for 6 mana in blue. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying. Where X that spell's mana value, you can also cycle it away and make 1 XX with flying. Hey, okay, you got a cycling deck, great. If not, yeah, do you cast a bunch of non-creature spells in your deck? Cool, this is better Talrand. Yeah, this is a very, 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 very good card. It's an enchantment, so it's hard to deal with. It's just so interesting that this one gives, like, all your sharks flying. So, like, here's the question, okay? Help me figure this out, all right? You play your non-creature spell. Like, okay, in the world of Magic, right? I'm like, I'm a wizard. I cast a spell. Ha, ha, ha. Also, I summon this shark with this. And there's a water spout. And the shark is in the water spout going around. Okay, cool. All right, I cast another spell. There's another shark. Is that shark? Does the second shark go in the same water spout that's keeping it flying? Or is it in a separate water spout over here that's flying with it too? And then how does a shark decide to go in a certain direction with the water spout to attack someone? Is it more like the water spout's in charge or the shark? It doesn't make any sense. These sharks aren't flying themselves. They're just like flying in a tornado, right? It's like Sharknado. Anyways, let me know in the comments below about that. It's a very good card, $5.30. Next up, Mind's Dilation. Spicy card. This thing used to be like pretty budget friendly. I think this was actually in my initial Joda deck long time ago. My goodness. Wow. One of my first decks I ever built. Champ for 7 mana. Whenever opponent casts their first spell, you turn the player exile the top card of the library. It's a non-land card you may cast the card with its mana cost. This is just one of those like really fun cards that is super powerful too. Like 7 mana is a lot for enchantment, yes, but the amount of value you can get out of this is absurd, and it makes your opponents just absolutely cry every single time they cast spell. Like, please don't get anything good off the top of my library. Oh no! Yeah. Are there going to be times you whiff? Sure. Are there going to be times you hit really big with this? Absolutely. It's like a big spell type splashy deck could definitely utilize something like this, especially if you've got, like, let's say like a big spell deck, but also maybe a deck that is like top of the library manipulation, where you're like, you can set the top of players' libraries, or like you have like access to know what the top of their library is, and then like you mill them until you get something good. That can work as well. Very good card. Finally, actually not finally, we got 2 more. Sorry. Command Beacon. Yeah, very good land, very expensive land, always been expensive, and hopefully Wizard keeps reprinting it to get its cost down. $6.13. Tap for 8 colors. Tap, sacrifice, and put your commander in your hand from the command zone. Basically a good way to get around commander tax. So if you have, say, a monocolor deck, very good to consider with that kind of a deck. If you got the budget for it, you can use it for utility land. 2 color, in it like 3 color for specific commanders that you really keep getting back command zone you want to get back. Or like Phage, I guess that's a monocolor commander, but it's like ones that like you can't actually play the command zone or you lose. That works too. You kind of need something like this. That being said, yeah, it's very good. Again, if your commanders died like 5 times and go back to the command zone, it would cost 10 extra. You're like, okay, I get rid of 1 land and I nix the commander tax by just getting it back to my hand. So there you go. Also, like the Myojin could consider this as well, because they don't get that counter on them unless they're played from your hand, which I find to be annoying. They should be errated. Wizards and the new Myojin should just have it, but the Wizards like, no, we don't want it. Yeah, I've got opinions on Myojin. Look at that. But yes, being able to then say, like, again, if they have like a cast trigger from your hand, consider that as well. Because if they're going to hit the cast trigger to the command zone, you have to like bounce back to your hand, then replay them. So this is a way to get around that. Finally, Terror of the Peaks. $17, but this is a long shot from where it used to be. I think it was like $25, $30 card. 5/4 dragon with flying that costs 5 mana in red. Spells your opponents cast the target. It costs additional 3 left to cast. It didn't need that, Wizards, but you threw it on there. Also, whenever another creature in the battlefield to control, it deals Terror of the Peaks deals damage. Equal that creature's power to any target. Basically, War Storm Surge on a 5/4 flying dragon for 5 mana. That also is Ward 3 essentially. Woof. Yeah. That's a good card. There's a reason why this is so expensive. Dragon Tribal is one of the most popular tribes out there. Definitely good in that. Also, do you use Warstorm Surge in a deck? Probably also good in those decks too. Also, there's some combos that can work with this as well. A very good card. Very expensive as well, but definitely cheaper than it used to be. But with that, this episode is coming to a close. So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts are on this one. Let me know your thoughts are on my picks for cards that you should be picking up right now. These great reprints. I'm sure I missed a reprint out there. It's like, what about this one? I'm like, yeah, okay, but don't tell me about those land, like the filter lands. Like I covered the one, all right? That covers all of them, all right? I think there's other lands out there that were also good too. But regardless, a lot of good reprints. If you're waiting for some of these cards, like I have to be budget friendly. I can't believe some of them are like Heliod. Oh my goodness. Yeah, a lot of these cards I've been waiting for to be more budget friendly. Make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.